it should go. Yeah, this should be the first.
Hi, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you to everyone for coming out on this extremely beautiful, unseasonably warm day. My name is Erin Helmrich. I'm one of the librarians here, and this is sort of a reunion and homecoming because back in 2020 in the spring, I was planning an event with 3 of these amazing folks to do a smell and tell about Arabic poetry then. So it's nice that we were able to regroup. I'm going to have Rima give a formal introduction for everyone and give you an idea of what we're going to be doing this evening. So please give a warm welcome to Rima Hassouna.
Thank you, Erin, for that very warm and kind introduction. I actually cannot take, I'm part of the Arab-American Advisory Group, which is a group that advises the Ann Arbor Public Schools on teaching sensitively about the Arab experience or Arab-American students' experiences in schools. And we decided, Hadil, her name is my wonderful colleague and friend on the Arab-American Advisory Group, and we wanted to put on this poetry event, and we turned to the wonderful Dr. Wessam Elmeligi, who is a professor of Arab Studies and Literature in UM-Dearborn, but he will actually begin our wonderful program. We are going to have a lot of poetry reading across time in both Arabic and English, and we're also going to animate it with audio and some video segments. The part of the purpose is to celebrate and to demonstrate how much Arabic poetry of high and low enters into the popular imagination. So there's that, and then Hadil and I will finish up by reading some poems by Arab-American poets, and yeah, I think we'll do that, and we'll hopefully have some time. Yahya will read as well from his poetry, and at the very end, we hope to have Q&A or conversation, really, for about 10-15 minutes. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over, yes, to Professor Wessam Elmeligi. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rima. Thank you, Erin, and thank you to the Ann Arbor District Library. I moved recently to Ann Arbor from Dearborn, and I have been pretty much a resident of the different libraries. I mean, to the extent that I probably don't go home. You can hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll start over again. I want to thank you all. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Rima, of course, and Hadil for putting this together, and Yahya for coming and joining us. I moved to Ann Arbor recently from Dearborn. I was there for a few years. And since I moved here, I've been, I have to say this again, a resident of the Ann Arbor Public Libraries. So I'm very grateful to that. I'm pretty much spend the entire day over there, unless I have to go to work. And thank you so much for doing this for all of us. Okay, I'll start. What I'll be focusing on in the readings will be readings from classical Arabic poetry, like 2 or 3 of them in it, and then I'll move over to a couple of modern poems. And some of the translations, particularly for the classical Arabic poetry, are my own translations. The others are translations I have from the internet, and with a few edits or changes I made to them. And after most of the poems, I'll either provide some kind of context or at least try briefly. Some of them have been turned into music, or some of them have been sung, so we'll be listening for just a few seconds from the songs or the performances. Some of them have been like turned or adapted into paintings, including a couple by me as well. The idea here is to show how Arabic poetry has been an inspiration of Arabic culture, and actually culture in the entire region, what sometimes we refer to as Swana instead of Middle East. I don't want to problematize too much, but some people consider the word Middle East to be colonialist. But anyway, let's call it that at least. Smana is the other way of referring to it, like Southwest Asian and North African. So what we have here is looking at Arabic poetry and also its inspiration into different forms of art. Just to acknowledge this part, this is where I'm getting the classical poems from. It's a poetry book that I have translated. I've compiled like translated something like 400 poems by Arab women in particular. And the reason I'm referring to it is that those women were writing poetry from pre-Islamic times. So we're talking the 500 AD to all the way to the Middle Ages, to the 1600s or the 1500s. And the reason I'm quoting them is that I'm trying to bash some stereotypes, very serious stereotypes about Arabic culture. Among those stereotypes is oppression of women at the time, which I have found, at least culturally, to be not very true at all, because just by researching how many women were writing poetry at the time, I found somewhere at least 200 or 300 women writing poetry, and the poetry has survived. While when I was comparing that to women writing poetry in Latin or Greek at the same time, I found 9. So the cultural significance of women writing poetry at the time is itself something that raises a question of the contribution of women writing poetry. But this can be a topic for something else. Okay, I'll start by reading one poet, and her name is Layla Al-Amiriya. For context, Layla Al-Amiriya is usually quoted or usually narrated with Qais ibn al-Mulawah, and Qais is a poet, and he was an Umayyad poet. Umayyad meaning after the initial period of Islamic tradition, and it's the beginning of like what is referred to as the golden age of Arabic and Islamic culture. And Qais and Layla had one of the earliest known impossible love stories. So in other words, a Romeo and Juliet kind of love story. He and his cousin, or like distant relatives, the word cousin here is used very liberally, went in love, but there was a family feud. Their families did not like each other. He wrote about her, describing her, and this was considered very shameful that he describes her. It meant that he has met her. Their love was, they were like the epitome of cross-starred lovers. They wrote poetry about each other. Eventually, they both died because they could not be together. It's a very kind of Romeo and Juliet. And some people would actually say, I mean, I'm one of them, that it is possible that somebody like Shakespeare has taken a lot of inspiration from translations that happened in the 16th century, and this is one of them. So the thing here is, Qais has been writing poetry about his beloved Layla for a very long time, but she is also an accomplished poet, and her poetry has not been given enough attention. And from a feminist perspective, you can all guess what I'm going to say. I mean, why wouldn't she be given a voice when she was as much an accomplished poet as he was? So I'll read a translation I did for just a couple of lines for her, and then we're going to listen to a song. He was referred to in culture, in Arabic culture and in Arabic literary tradition as Majnoon Layla, or the Layla's madman. So she was blaming him here for writing about them and scandalizing them, basically, and making their problem even worse by writing about her. So she says, the madman suffered nothing that I as well had not felt. But he told the secret of love while I in silence would melt. So they both suffered, but at least he has the agency to write about what he feels. But she, in addition to the same suffering, she has to die in silence. She has to suffer in silence as well. This is Layla Al-Amiriya. So this is one poem. And in addition to her poetry, their story has been such an inspiration on modern literature, modern art. And Ahmad Shawqi, an Egyptian poet of the 20th century, wrote an entire operetta about them. And part of that was turned into a song by Syrian singer Asmahan, one of my all-time favorites. And I'm perfectly willing to fight anyone who disagrees, although I usually don't. But and Abdul Wahab, who is also a great inspiration. So he is singing and putting this to music, and Asmahan is singing against him. The two people who are acting this operetta are not the singers. So we're just sitting for like 30 seconds of them. Let me explain what this is. This is when she meets him, Layla meets Qais, and I'll translate very quickly. She says, Qais, our relative, is here. how fortunate I am. And he says, Layla, and he's about to start singing, and then her father comes over, and I stop because it turns south really quickly after that. So. Yeah, I mean, where they are looking is where the father comes in. So, okay, I want to move on now. Okay, more inspiration by the same story, but I go through this one quickly, was in Persian. A Persian poet Nizami Ganjavi wrote Khamsa, which means 5. It's a quintet, 5 poems, and one of them was about Qais and Layla. It was illustrated by artist Firdausi. I'll just show you how beautiful the art here is. Those are Persian miniatures of Layla and Qais as he is looking at her, and this is towards the end of the poem where both of them die. The next one is actually a drawing that I did for a graphic novel on Arabic literature, and I intentionally chose a balcony scene in reference to the famous Romeo and Juliet balcony scene, probably sort of to retrieve it, get it back to Arabic culture. Okay, the next poet is a Abbasid poet, Rifaat Alareer. And Rifaat Alareer has a very interesting story. Nobody knows for sure exactly what, but she is considered the origin of Sufism, which is a very spiritual aspect of Islamic tradition. And to have this kind of tradition going back to a woman or a female has been denied for a very long time. So to have a spiritual leader as one of the primary leaders of an entire tradition is very interesting and very important in my opinion. There are many stories about her. Some of them have not been proved, like that she was a sex worker at a certain point, that she was a slave. What we do know is that she was also definitely a singer and that she was a poet. So I'm going to read in Arabic and then in English one of her best known poems, and then we're going to listen to part of a song singing the same poem. Okay. In this one, she introduced what is referred to in Arabic literature as divine love. So her poetry, if you don't know that she's talking about the Lord, basically in the sense of God, you would definitely think she's writing to a lover. So a lot of her poems are about that, like mixing even almost erotic love or a very sensual love with spirituality. So which was a very important aspect that affected or impacted Arabic poetry for a very long time afterwards. Okay. عرفت الهوى مذ عرفت هواك وأغلقت قلبي على من عاداك وقمت أناجيك يا من ترى خفايا القلوب ولسنا نراك أحبك حبين حب الهوى وحبا لأنك أهل لذاك فأما الذي هو حب الهوى فشغلي بذكرك عمن سواك وأما الذي أنت أهل له فلست أرى الكون حتى أراك فلا الحمد في ذا ولا ذاك لي ولكن لك الحمد في ذا وذاك. Okay, I have a translation for, I translated this one as follows. Of course, it has been translated by other translators as well. I love you two loves. A love of love, and a love because that is what you deserve. As for the love of love, it keeps me away from anyone but you. As for that which you deserve, it is that you removed all veils till I saw you. There is no gratitude due to me for either this or that, but all gratitude goes to you for this and for that. Okay, now given the history of Arab cinema, and in this particular case, Egyptian cinema, this has had to be made into a movie. Not exactly the greatest movie of all time, but it had Nabila Obeid and it had Farid Shawqi. Farid Shawqi is actually known for movies that have absolutely nothing to do with spirituality, and those who have watched those movies would probably know. He was usually a thug or a thief or something. That in this particular movie, they adopt the story of her being a slave and him being the master. And what I really like about the movie is that they add not only a spiritual, but also a very emotional, psychological aspect to it. He falls in love with her, and it's not about the fact that he becomes religious after that, but he actually loves her, he sets her free, and they don't marry. She moves, she goes away, she becomes a hermit, she's on her own, and he keeps loving her, and it redeems him in a sense. So I love the way they looked at it from that perspective. The actual character played by Farid Shawqi is probably not historical. Nobody knows if it actually ever existed, but her character is there. Now, the part I'm going to play is from a song by Kulthum, definitely the iconic singer, referred to as Kawkab al-Sharq, the planet of the East. She is singing, but she's not Nabila Obeid, and Nabila Obeid, apparently the director probably felt that she should be a better, she should be able to act that. I mean, don't laugh at the scene itself, because it's this is 1963, so the technology was not great, but the sound is, the voice of Kulthum is just mind-blowing. This Kulthum, and the scene that we have here is a turning point in the narrative where the slave owner, Farid Shawqi, listens to Nabila Obeid playing, of course, Rab'a while she is praying, or actually she's singing or reading one of her poems, the exact poem I was just reading, and this transforms him.
سيد العالمين رب الناس أجمعين الله سبحانه وتعالى
Okay, the last of the classical poets is Andalusian poet Walada bint al-Mustakfi. And Andalusia is a beacon of light in the history of the world, actually. It's a time when people from all different faiths and all different creeds and belongings and ideas and spiritual beliefs and inclinations, it was a melting pot, actually. It was a hub for everything. But Andalusia fell, and nobody paid attention to her. And this is unfortunately very reminiscent of what's going on now with Gaza. Hopefully the outcome will not be the same, but the idea of a very important part of humanity is suffering and calling for help, and nobody pays attention until a beacon of light is extinguished, which is what happened in Andalusia. But anyway, Walada bint al-Mustakfi was a princess, which is also, at least in that book, is another proof that women were given a lot of agency. She was not silenced being a princess. She was not silenced by the prince or by the caliph or someone who tells her, I mean, not in the house of the caliph. Poetry is only for slave women and not for women of higher ranking. Her poem is very interesting because it shows a lot of agency. She used to actually sew the poems on her clothes, like one line on one part of the label and the other on the other side. And I have a painting, I did a painting of that as well. So I read the Arabic, read the English, and then I'll show you the drawing. It's very brief. So the first two lines are on one side of her clothes and the others are on the other side. أنا والله أصلح للمعالي وأمشي مشيتي وأتيه تيها وأمكن عاشقي من صحن خدي وأعطي قبلتي من يشتهيها. So the physical, yeah, it's very a bit racy. I mean, I tried to choose the least raciest. I mean, Andalusians and Abbasids were pretty naughty, actually. So in English, this is a translation I have for it. I, by God, am good for a high state. I walk my walk and swagger with a proud gait. I enable my lover to have my whole cheek and give a kiss to whomever my kiss would seek. The very fact that she shows this kind of agency over her body and that she is the one who controls who to kiss and who allows to touch her is very interesting. Now, this is drawing of her with poems written on her clothes on both sides. This is also another painting I did inspired by Andalusian poetry of music and poetry being sort of combined together. Okay, now we move on to modern poetry and another of my all-time favorites, Nizar Qabbani, Syrian poet. Yes, he is. Okay, since we're talking about empowerment, I'll be reading a translation. There are a few differences because, of course, Nizar Qabbani's poems, actually almost all of them, or at least most of them, have been turned into music by Iraqi singer Kadhem Al-Saher. So we'll be listening to Kadhem Al-Saher and we'll be looking at the translation of the poem. I mean, Kadhem Al-Saher, it's a poem, the music is long, so I might actually shorten it, but I have a feeling that most of you actually like to see Kadhem Al-Saher for longer than 40 seconds. Okay, I'll read the translation only, but not the Arabic. The Arabic will be in the song itself. Be a dangerous woman. I want to be sure when I hold you that you're not the remains of a tree. Tell me something, say something, sing, cry, live, dance. So I would not be told one day that my love is a tree. Be ruthlessness, be a tigressness, be the venom, be the snake, be the magic, be a magician, be a horse, my lady. Be a cutting sword, be an insatiable lip, be an African summer, be a burning field of spices, be the wonderful pain, for I bleed love when I ache. Sing, cry, live, dance. For that I would not be told one day that I was holding a tree. Be thunder, be lightning, be rejection, be anger, be the soil, be the fruit. So I would not be told one day that I made love to a tree. Okay, Kadhem Al-Saher probably does not need much of an introduction, an Iraqi singer who has transferred or put most of Nizar Qabbani's songs into music. He was not the only one, of course, but I mean, he's very much famous for that. So we'll listen to this, and we won't be able to listen to the whole thing because I think it's like 6 minutes long, or maybe we can, we'll see.
وتكوني النمرة لفي حولي حولي كي يتحسس دفء الجلد وعطر البشرة. كوني امرأة خطرة كوني القسوة كوني النمرة لفي حولي حولي كي يتحسس دفء الجلد وعطر البشرة. غني غني عيشي عيشي ارقصي 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 غني عيشي كي جني يقطع كوني شفة ليست تشبع كوني صيفا إفريقيا كوني حقل بهار يلذع كوني الوجع الرائع إني أنزف حبا إذا توجع.
Right, the last poem I'll read is Khalil Gibran. So we talked about classical Arabic poetry, we talked about an example of modern poetry. Of course, these are like a dot in the entire ocean of Arabic literature. But we have to mention an Arab-American poet as well, Khalil Gibran. He's considered in many ways one of the, I wouldn't say forefathers, because that's a very patriarchal term, but one of the pioneers of Arab-American literature. And Gibran wrote The Prophet, which is a book of poems that he wrote in the turn of the 20th century. And when it was published, for quite some time, it was not only best-selling, but it was actually the second best-selling book after the Bible in the United States. So it just shows you how very successful his poetry and his writing was. Well, I'm going to read like very brief translation, not translation actually, because this was written in English, a very brief part of his poem, and then also a few seconds from Fairuz, another iconic singer, Lebanese, who's singing part of that in Arabic. Give me the flute and sing. Immortality lies in a song. And even after we have perished, the flute continues to lament. Have you taken refuge in the woods, away from places like me? Followed streams on their courses and climbed up the rocks? Did you ever bathe in a perfume and dry yourself with a light? Drink the dawn as wine, rarified in goblets of ether? Give me the flute then and sing. And there she is. Fairuz, the iconic Lebanese singer. This will probably have to be played from here. Okay, for the sake of time. Okay, I think this concludes my part. And next, Rima, would you like to? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Wessam. That was quite incredible. I think we are turning to a more somber moment here for Rifaat Alareer, Allah yarhamah. So many of you probably know who Rifaat Alareer is, but it is definitely worth saying again who he was and who he is. He was a poet, a writer, a father, a husband, a neighbor, a brother, a son, and he was killed in an airstrike on December 6th, targeted by an Israeli airstrike during the genocide in Gaza. And he wrote this incredible poem, which I love to read, and I want to share with all of you today. If I must die, if I must die, you must live, to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings. Make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze, and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale. Thank you. Oh, thank you. I don't know how to do that. What's next? Okay. So, thank you. Oh, no, I appreciate it. Thank you. So this is a poem by, it's called Prongs into the Nation, by a Palestinian poet named Samah Serour Fadil, who was featured recently on an NPR interview. And a friend of mine said to me, you really need to read this poem. And she's a remarkable poet. And I'd like to read this poem, which actually can be read horizontally. It comes in 2 columns, and you can read it horizontally or vertically. First column first, and then left column first, and then going to the right. But I think if you'll allow me, I'll just read it the tame horizontal way. But you will find quite quickly it is not a tame poem. A little bit about Samah Serour Fadil. She is an award-winning Afro-Palestinian writer. We really wanted to have this event represent as many voices as possible from Arab and Arab-American poets and experiences. And it was quite delightful to have discovered her, quote unquote. She is a writer, editor, and translator who resides in Montreal. And her poem, Prongs into the Nation, was selected as the winner of the Petty Propolis Deconflating Surveillance with Safety poetry contest, a formidable sounding contest. Her debut book of micropoems, Light, Dark, In Between, is available for order. And here we go. Prongs into the Nation. It's never enough to simply exist as humans. Lands get involved. Between folds of skin and folds of a bill, it's funny how money changes situations, twists straight roads ahead to fit lie into truth. Should you write the plea to save a nation, have your rights forbidden by rule of law, offered up as a solution that sticks out prongs and stabs cement, fresh slabs behind your back, right at your neck. Now you are stuck between the cold metal. The wall built keeps you out, keeps you in, cleanses the soil of its indigenous hosts. Through destruction above all else, humans always love to boast, launch hundreds of warheads, pillage and forage, then demand you atone, make amends and conjure a million miracles, thread the cosmos through a needle, sew the eye, the hem of freedom, build the shapes of our nation's dress, forget to live and live to forget. Through it all, truth laid bare, walls may be built only to crumble once again. Okay. And I would like to read, oh, thank you. One more person, if you don't mind. Safi Al-Hulu, a remarkable Sudanese American poet. Her books are in this library. This is how I found this book, was in this fine library. And she is, I'd love to, yeah, there she is. I mean, you know she's a badass person with that amazing photograph. Great title, Girls That Never Die, poems. She is Sudanese by way of DC, Safia El-Hilou is the author of The January Children and Home is Not a Country, and co-editor of the anthology Halal If You Hear Me. She is the winner of the Silliman First Book Prize for African Poets, the Arab American Book Award, and the Brunel International African Poetry Prize. And I would like to read for you. The first one is called Elegy. See her, little cousin, little sister, sparrow-boned, alive. I want to turn to firewood everything that hurts her. I do not have the verbs for what I need for her. I needed them myself and was not protected. I want to make ash of this world that did not protect us, and from that nourished soil sprout one better. At the kitchen table, we eat a glutinous stew with our soft hands, submerged to the second knuckle, and she is telling me a story, and she is telling it quickly. Short chirp of her laugh as she tries to mold it, as she tries to mold from it the joke. The old story of our girlhoods, the ways we haunt the houses built to keep the world out, to keep us safe. The ways we still were hurt, the ways we could not tell anyone what was done to us. The ways we swallowed blame, smooth pebble in the shut mouth. The ways we could not tell our mothers when we needed them the most. I see her and I am 14. I am 22. I have been badly hurt. I see her, little mouth, barefaced and vulnerable. I see her and don't know where to begin. And I'll read one more. This one's called Summer Triangle. Say I formed a body of clay around a clot of dried blood. I formed a body of dirt and water. I formed a body of water around red earth and cracked clay. I formed a body polluted by want, most of it not mine. I formed a body purified by name, washed in the white water of my grandfather's blind left eye, washed with my grandmother's feet in ablution. I formed a body to be left behind, to be unzipped and discarded, to return to perfumed aunts, arranged in jagged sleep, waking only to tie systems of jasmine into my torn hair. I formed a body suspended in utterance, named and undone and named again. Girl, lacuna, specter, throat, throat, say it, bloodstain, sheet, name it. I formed a body darkened by blood, the moon tugging its irons from my shameful parts. I formed a body and swam in elegant laps in rising water, temperate as the first womb, and always ships darkening the banks like blood, and always water dividing the world. God's country clotting out between my legs like silk. Thank you, everyone. Hadil.
Now for Hadil, and I have the, yes.
So I had to add one thing to this wonderful program. Vernacular Arabic poetry. Oh, you cannot hear me. Is this good? Right. Yeah. So I'm going to read a poem by Ahmed Fouad Nigm. He's an Egyptian poet who was born in 1929, died 2013. He writes in the vernacular, not in the modern standard Arabic or that you find in newspapers or in universities and books, or the classical or the Quran. It's really how people speak on the streets. And he was, just by knowing things that he was called or named, he was named the dissident poet of Egypt's underclass. This is how he would dress, even though he won awards and he was very famous for many years. but he remained very popular among students, and especially during the student movement in Cairo University, something that is very mood appropriate, kind of like what we're seeing around here. And he remained inspiring to everyone on the opposition, everyone. Revolutionaries all over the Arab world, they would have his cassettes, which were sung by his an act, like a oud player and a singer, Sheikh Imam, of course. So yeah, the award he once was the Ambassador of the Poor, and Prince Claus Award, he won an award for his unwavering integrity. So yeah, he earned 18 years of jail in prison over many times. And because he went to prison so many times, this poem that I'm reading, it's actually called The Prison Ward. And it's called in Arabic Al-Ambara, which is an Egyptian slang word. And this is the party that they give to an inmate on his last day before he's set free. So it's kind of like clapping him out, like graduating from prison. So I'm going to read it first in Arabic, if you don't mind. And then I will read it in a translation that Mona Anis, an Egyptian translator, translated it, and I maybe modified a few things. So here it goes. عنبر كله يسمع شخشخت بالزهر ما نصفنيش ولا مرة وراهنت بالمهر والبقشيش على مرة والسجن للحر وإن كان مر ولا مرة فكرني بالتوبة من دي النوبة ولا مرة بعد مساء الخير على حراس الليل برنجي وكنجي وشنجي كله لبط ولمنجي بس البدلة بتفرق والعيب على المخزنجي الأولى للنبي والتانية أيوب والتالتة غربتي والرابعة المكتوب والخامسة اللي افترى حتما يبات مغلوب الأولى يا نبي يا محرر الإنسان يا بلسم المبتلي يا نجدة الغلبان كرمت صنف البشر عن طيفة الحيوان ورفعت سيف الهدى عالي على الطغيان وزعقت يا أمتي في سائر الأزمان الظلم يوم لو حكم والحق يوم لو هان يحرم عليك المطر والفي والعمران تسرح بحورك عطش في الزرع والإنسان ويجري فيك الحنش وتحوم الغربان ترمي الخراب على الجبل والسهل والوديان النور يغور من السما وجه القمر ما يبان والشوف يضيع في العمى والضلمة والأحزان والخوف يطيح في البشر من قسوة السجان الناس تخاف بعضها وتخوف السلطان والتانية قلت أنا أيوب وأنا مثلين أيوب ومهما ابتلى أيوب يروح لي فين أيوب صبر كام سنة أيوب صبر له يومين طلعت عليه القصص وتنادى بالاسمين عدوه من الأنبياء والصالحين الاتنين وأنا اللي صبري هنا جوه اللومان صبرين صبري على خطفتي من عزوتي والبين وصبر تاني على حكم الزمان يا عين الندل فينا حكم والندل حكمه شين حكم البقر على البشر بشريعة القرنين وحق تربة نبي طه كحيل العين هلبت يوم يتنصب بدال الميزان 2 وانظر بعين الرضا للعدل في الميزانين والتالتة غربتي في عالم الأندال الندل فيه احتمى والحر فيه انطال والواطي لما اعتلى أجر له كم طبال الشحط والبلطجي واللص والمحتال ومين يحب النبي سقفة كمان يا عيال الرقص دار في البلد عمال على بطال واللحم لما اتكشف غطى على اللي اتقال لا سمعنا صوت في النغم ولا كلمة في الموال خنقوا الكلام في الغنى والرنة في الخلخال 1 يا موحد الواحد 2 يا جد الحسين 3 يا سوي الشماتة 4 يا حبر المطبعة 5 يا عزمي يا حي 6 يا بكرة يا جاي 7 يا قلبي يا مايل 8 يا شوق الزمايل 9 يا دنيا يا واسعة 10 يا خاين يا حشرة أعرفكم جميعاً إن السجن سور وأعرفكم جميعاً إن الفكرة نور وعمر النور ما يعجز يقزح 1000 سور وعمر السور ما يقدر يحجز بنت حور وأعرفكم جميعاً إن الظلم شايخ وأعرفكم جميعا باب السجن خايخ، وأعرفكم جميعا إنه ملوش أكرة، وأعرفكم جميعا إنه هيبقى ذكرى، وأبشركم جميعا إن الوعد بكرة والنور عندنا وعندكم يا حبايب. I'm sorry if it was long. Now we deserve a translation. The prison ward. This was written in 1978, by the way. Prison ward, listen in. I've shaken the dice many times and gambled with everything on the big prize and lost. And bitter though prison is, I've never once wanted to repent. Having bid the night guards good evening, every single one of them, the Bringi, the Kingi, and the Shingi, I say, we're wicked inmates all, though the storeroom clerk has given us different uniforms. My first words are for the Prophet, my second for Job, the third for my estrangement, the fourth for my destiny. My fifth, I will say that he who oppresses others will himself be defeated one day. First, hail to the Prophet who freed mankind, cured the afflicted and rescued the poor. You honored men above the animals, raised the sword of righteousness high above oppression, and declared to your people, if one day injustice should prevail and right be trodden down, no rain will there be, no greenery, no civilization, just snakes and crows wreaking havoc on the mountains and valleys. No moon or light in the skies, only blindness, sorrow, and fear of the jailer's cruelty, when people become scared of each other and they scare the Sultan. Second, I say I'm Job. When Job was afflicted, he endured for years. Stories were told about him, and he was given two names, called both a prophet and a saint. But what about me, here in prison, twice patient? Patient after I was kidnapped from my people, and patient with what has been dealt out to me. The rascals rule, and the reign is one of shame. It's the law of beasts over people. I swear by the grave of the prophet that one day the scales of justice will be twice upheld, and I shall be satisfied, seeing justice twice applied. Third, my estrangement in a world of rascals, where the rascals are protected and the free people endangered. When the villain climbs up, he hires the sycophant, the thug, the crook, and the hypocrite. Praise be to the prophet, and clap. They are dancing vigorously for no reason. The naked flesh covered the words, drowning out the sound of music and the poetry in the mawel, strangling the words in the song and the ring and the anklet. One, the one and the only. Two, the grandfather of Hussein. Three, it is ugly to gloat. Four, the ink of the press. Five, my strong resolve. Six, the coming tomorrow. Seven, my heart in love. Eight, the longing of my fellow inmates. Nine, the wide world. 10, the traitor be damned. Let it be known by all that prisons are only walls, that ideas are the light, that light can jump over 1,000 walls, and that walls never hold back a beautiful spirit. And let it be known by all that injustice has grown old, and that the prison gate is flimsy, and that it has no handles, and that soon it will be only a memory, and that the promises will be fulfilled tomorrow, and that your days and hours will be filled with light. Thank you.
Yeah. Now we have an actual poet, Yahya Ashour from Gaza, who has, we are honored and privileged to have him here. Thanks to Rima and Hadir for putting this together. He has been to different campuses, actually nationwide, and I had the pleasure of hosting him at the University of Majida Al-Dearborn as well on the Dearborn campus. And Yahya, please come over.
Thank you so much. I'm actually going to let this stay because I love the poet. So, but, oh, sorry, I don't know. So I'm going to read one poem in Arabic, and then I'm gonna read the English version, okay? This poem is the title poem that I've been like reading, doing a lot of readings across the US, and it's called This Is What the World's Silence Says. But before I start, I just want to say I just got disturbing news from one of my friends who helped me organize a reading at the Indiana University. They arrested him today. Of course, there is an encampment there. They arrested him and they suspended him for a year from campus. So I'm sorry if I sound, I'm shaking, but I'm very worried about him. He's a great organizer. And I just came from the encampment in the University of Michigan here in Ann Arbor. I was there yesterday too. I did a reading, I read poetry and I spoke there. And I hope everyone in the community here, every one of you goes and attends and supports these amazing students at the University of Michigan. It's so important. I hope you go there, you check it out, and I hope you go every day. And I hope you donate to them food and everything they need, because they need to stay until their demands are met. Thank you. Thank you. So this is the poem. I'm going to read in Arabic and then in English. هذا ما يقوله صمت العالم. لا حظ للغزي إلا في موته. لا قدر له أصلا سوى موته. هذا ما يقوله صمت العالم. حتى خوفنا أكله صمتهم. قالوا لنا لما الخوف وتلك الويلات قد جنيتم بها على أنفسكم. What's that? Someone should have told me. Okay, split the rock. Okay, oops. Okay, this is better. I'm sorry, Wessam. I'm gonna start again. Okay, sorry. هذا ما يقوله صمت العالم. لا حظ للغزي إلا في موته. لا قدر له أصلا سوى موته. هذا ما يقوله صمت العالم. حتى خوفنا أكله صمتهم. قالوا لنا لما الخوف وتلك الويلات قد جنيتم بها على أنفسكم. ثم انصرفوا ليتابعوا أعباء حياتهم. ولكم حيرتهم حينها حرياتهم. ما جنينا منك شيئا أيها العالم غير أنه كلما أورقت قليلا أشجارنا غطى الخريف أرضنا وسماءنا. ما نفع الحقيقة الآن إن بترت أطرافها. كيف لها أن تشق طريقها إليكم. كيف لها أن تسلم عليكم وتأمن لكم. يا أبناء القطاع المغمور بالحظ جاءكم الصهاينة بجهنم لتقودكم إلى الجنة. جاءكم الصهاينة يجرون بذيولهم شعوبا وقبائل ذليلة. تمهلوا على الصراط المستقيم ولا تفلت يد أحدكم يد الآخر. تنعموا سويا على الأرائك والأنهار. ابلعوا عذاباتكم بلعا ولا تتقيؤوها حتى في كوابيسكم. فلا تعود تغزو الشياطين جنتكم. ولا يستعجل أحدكم أن يرى وجه ربه. ربما القصف منقطع النظير يهز أيضا عرشه. لا تقلقوا لابد أن 7 سماوات تتسع لعدد لا نهائي من الأرواح. لكني أتساءل كم ألف طفل ستتحمل جلبتهم بلا أعمدة. يا رب إن كان زمن المعجزات قد انقضى لما لم ينقضي معه زمن المجازر. يا رب كنا لا نفطن كم روحا خسرنا كل مجزرة. الآن لا نطيق عد المجازر. يا رب ارحم صبرنا ولا تمهلهم أكثر مما فعلت. أو على الأقل أعطنا بعضا من غيبك وأخبرنا إلى متى ستظل تمهلهم غضبك. Thank you. This is what the world silence says. No Gazan should be considered fortunate until dead. No Gazan should have any other destiny. This is what the world silence says. Even our fear was chewed up by this silence. They ask us, why fear when you have inflicted these calamities upon yourselves? Then they continued bearing their burdens. Their liberties baffled them so much. O world, we have earned nothing from you, except that whenever our trees leaf out, autumn denotes our land and our sky. What help is in truth now if its limbs got amputated? How could it make its way to you? How could it feel welcome and safe with you? O people of the Gaza Strip, who are swimming in fortune, the Zionists brought you hell to lead you to heaven. They came to you, dragging with their tails humiliated nations and tribes. O people of the Gaza Strip, slow down on the straight path to heaven. Don't let go of each other's hands. Calm yourselves on sofas and rivers. Swallow your sufferings really well. Don't vomit them even in your nightmares, so the devil stays away from your heaven. Don't rush to see the face of God. Perhaps the unprecedented bombing shakes his throne too. Don't worry. The seven heavens must fit an infinite number of souls, but I wonder how many thousands of children the heavens could endure the noise of without walls. O God, if the time of miracles has passed, why the time of massacres hasn't? O God, we couldn't tell how many lives we lost in each massacre. Now we can't bear to count the massacres. O God, have mercy on our patience and don't spare them more time, or at least give us some of your unseen. Tell us how much longer will you spare them your anger. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed my poetry. If you want to learn more about my work and my poetry, I recently released a new book. It's an electronic book, so it's online. If you would like to buy it, please see me after this event. Or you can look it up. It's called A Gaza of Siege and Genocide. Thank you.
Maybe I can actually show it. I don't know if I can.
This is the book. You can find it on mesna.org. Can you see the word there?
Anyone have any questions?
I just have to add something really quickly. I mean, I want to thank Al at the back there, has been helping really with all the mess I've done with the computer. Thank you, Al. Thank you so much.
What's his name, the professor from Dearborn? Oh. I'm interested in your section, what you presented.
Thank you
And
so much.
how can one get that? Because I tried to get the names of some of the poets, because this is historical stuff that I did not know, and I'm interested in keeping it and
Sure.
learning
Yeah,
more.
I mean, I have the book I have is called. I mean, I don't want to keep.
Is it in that book?
Actually, let me try. It is. Yeah, they're all in this book. It's a
Wonderful.
translation of like 400
Wonderful.
400 poems. I think I can actually maybe look it up here.
The slide, if you show us the slide, we'll take a picture.
You want me to get back the slides? Okay. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Thank you so much for your interest. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Did you want to go up? Or?
Okay, so it seems like everyone has been dumbstruck, but I think I'll take that as a good sign. You have a question? Oh, great. Tom has a question. Please do. Yeah?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, Andalusia is happened towards approximately from the 9th, actually earlier than that century. And it's part of that. It started during what people refer to as the Umayyad dynasty, which came immediately after the first formative years of Muhammad and the caliphs that came after him. So that started in Syria, the Umayyad Caliphate, and then the Abbasid Caliphate came afterwards in Iraq. Somewhere in between those, Andalusia happened. So somewhere between the 7th to almost the 12th century. And Andalusia is in the Iberian Peninsula, or this is where the culture combining Arabic, Spanish, French even, and Judaism, Christianity, and Islam became this became a melting pot for all of them. And to the extent that some of the Arab poets at the time were, and even some of the military figures assisting the caliph were Jewish, some were Christian, some of the most accomplished poets at the time were, did not even believe in any of the Abrahamic faith at all. So it was a very, not just tolerant, but it was an actual melting pot of the different traditions. And all of them were combined specifically by writing Arabic and reading Arabic in particular. And a lot of people, a lot of scholars consider it a gateway of translation movements that started during the Abbasid era in Iraq, translating from Latin and Greek to Arabic, and then back from Arabic to English and French and German. And in that sense, this could have been actually what, in many ways, started or kick-started the Renaissance in Italy and in the Mediterranean in the 16th century and in the 15th century. So Andalusia was important in many ways. One of its significance is this melting pot, is a living proof of, or historical proof of, the very tangible possibility of coexistence and the beautiful and wonderful results of that as far as art is concerned, as far as freedom is concerned, for women, for people of different nationalities, but also how this kind of coexistence could easily be very fragile and very volatile, because when the Crusades started afterwards, when a lot of economic and military consequences of what was happening in Northern Europe afterwards, the militarization, for instance, religious extremism, Andalusia very quickly collapsed, and it became sort of some kind of like Atlantis, in a sense, like this dream sort of existence that nobody believes actually existed. And I've done some research on that. I mean, the poetry alone is just fascinating. So I cite Andalusia particularly for what we need now as this kind of understanding and this kind of championing of coexistence, and also not ignoring calls for help. So this is where I found the significance to what is going on now. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a wonderful overview. On behalf of the Ann Arbor Public Library and the Arab American Advisory Group, I want to so thank you exuberantly, all of you, for being here on a fine day. This is our first partnership with, I say we, the Arab American Advisory Group. It is the first of hopefully many happy partnerships. It is National Poetry Month. It's also, yes, thank you. It is Arab American Heritage Month. I should have said that in the beginning. And we hope to have many such events in the future at the Ann Arbor District Library. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Yay, thank you, Dr. Wessam Elmeligi. Thank you to all of, to Hadil, to Yahya, of course, Ashour, to all of us. Wallah, shukran, Wessam. Thank you so much, everyone.